During these tough times, I think we could all use a new way to relieve stress and participate in a calming activity. According to the ABA Journal, knitting and other crafty activities can recharge your brain in new ways to clear neural pathways for new ideas. My name is Ifeoma and today I'll be teaching you how to knit a simple garter stitch. Knitting is one of my favorite ways to relieve stress after a tiring day of school. I unwind, put on a show, and knit. The things you're gonna need are knitting needles. These are 10-inch knitting needles. You can use big ones if you want looser and larger stitches, or you can use smaller needles if you want smaller and tighter stitches. Lastly, you're gonna need yarn. You can use any yarn in any color, but today I'm using an orange yarn in 142 grams. So let's knit. The first step in starting your stitch is to cast on. Casting on is building the foundation for your stitches. So the first step is to create a loop, otherwise known as a slip knot, which is just crossing the two ends of your yarn over one another to create a loop. And then you're gonna bring your string to the back of that loop and pull the string in between the loop. Once you have your loop secured, you're gonna grab your needle and pull and push your needle through the loop and tighten it around the loop, just snug enough so that I can move around, but also so it doesn't slip off. Now you're ready to cast on. So holding your needle in your dominant hand, you're going to take your free hand and grip the yarn with your fingers. Bring your thumb behind the yarn, making your thumb horizontal, and then pulling your thumb up for a thumbs up. You're creating a loop around your thumb. Now you're going to take the needle to the base of your thumb and drag it straight up through the loop that you just created. And you're just going to keep going with that until you have the width that you want. But today I just did it up to 6 stitches. Now we're going to knit the garter stitch. The garter stitch can be done in 2 ways, by knitting or by purling, but today we're going to knit it. First, switch the needle to your left hand and grab your second needle with your right. Using your right needle, you're going to push it through the back of the needle, grab the string, pull it around the back needle, and you're going to slowly bring your right needle out and push up. With your back needle, you're going to pull it through the first stitch, making an X again with your needle, with your right needle on top. Lastly, you're going to slip the first stitch off of your left needle and tighten it. Sheepstitch.com gives some great advice about not being too hard on yourself when starting a new skill, especially when knitting, because knitting is so hard. They say to keep trying and eventually it'll become muscle memory. So take your time and keep practicing. So I'm just going to show you how I do it a couple more times and then we're going to move on. Once you finish knitting, all your stitches are going to be now on your right hand side. So now what you're going to do is just switch needles from right to left and then begin knitting again the same pattern that we just went over. Keep knitting until you get your desired length, and now we're ready to cast off. Once you have the length that you want, it's time to close off your stitches so that they don't unravel, and this is done by casting off. So first you're going to knit 2 stitches like we would normally, but after the second stitch, you're going to grab your left needle and you're just going to loop through the first stitch that you made. Once your needle is through that first stitch, you're going to bring it up and over the second stitch and drop it off. So you're going to repeat that again for the rest of the stitches, but by this time you're only going to be picking up 1 stitch each time you go back. So you're going to knit 1 stitch, go in with your left needle, pull it up and over the second stitch and drop it off. And you're going to continue that until you get to your very last stitch. So once you're on your last 2 stitches, you're going to do exactly the same thing. Put the left needle through the first stitch, pull it over the second stitch. But now that you have only 1 stitch left on your yarn, you're going to give yourself some wiggle room, pull your needle out, and you're going to tie that stitch in a simple knot and pull it tight. And now you've finished knitting your first garter stitch. Today I taught you how to cast on, knit, and cast off. Knitting is a great art form that relaxes you but also challenges you. A USA Today article stated that as we get older, we need to challenge our minds more and stay curious. Learning a new skill can build a new connection that can prevent mental deterioration. And knitting is an excellent example of that, and you can create beautiful pieces from it. Even if it's not perfect, it's a fun experience and that I encourage all of you to try. Or find an activity that suits you and that challenges you and that makes you happy. Thank you.